everyone, my name's Lindsay Monroe and I work on the Adobe XD team. I am back. I was here this morning kicking things off and I am joined by Josh Silverman.
Hello world. Hello Lindsay.
Hey.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's good. For those of you that have been watching, I think we are now in hour 18 or 19 of a very long stream in celebration of World Interaction Design Day. Like I said, we're both very excited to be here and we have a lot to get to, but I think we should start by figuring out, Josh, who are you?
I am Josh Silverman. I'm a designer and entrepreneur. I've been doing design so long that even if it's online or offline, if it's designing teams, designing aesthetics, designing furniture, designing experiences, I consider it design.
Yeah, I mean, design does cover all of those things, and
Yes.
It's neat that you have experience in all of those areas. It's actually quite impressive.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your journey, what are you doing today and how did you get there?
Sure. Today I'm here. Today
you are here. Correct. That is a fact.
Sure. I have a couple slides about that. I started my first business in '97.
Okay.
The business was called Schwa Design, and it was lean before lean was actually a term that we use a lot today. The whole idea behind Schwa Design was build the team to fit the client problem or client opportunity, whether it was our own opportunities or a client opportunity. And now I'm really happy to see that model being used a lot these days, configuring experts and some noobs to fit the problem. Whether it's 2 to 25 people, we were pretty flexible. We worked on for-profits, nonprofits, startups, education, fine artists. We rebranded the city of Providence, Rhode Island, where I used to live. So we had a lot of different kinds of experiences over the 16 years. And in our work with startups, I saw that we weren't moving fast enough for them.
Right, which is like wild to think about. But
Even a non-waterfall, let's all get in a room together and figure out what the opportunity is and then get to value faster. Mm-hmm. We weren't moving fast enough for startups. So when I moved out here, I started my second business called Startnership. It's a portmanteau for startup partnership.
Yep.
Startnership.
I love portmanteau. It's just a word you don't use enough. But
well,
yes, it's.
I use it all the time.
It's great.
I'm
I feel
happy
like
that you like it too.
It's great. It's great.
So Startnership was get all the people in the room together to get to value faster. So whether it was a half day, 1 day, 2 day, 5 day workshop, as long as you have internal alignment on the thing it is that you're building, you can get to value faster. And that included content strategy, design strategy, business strategy, even presentation materials, like how can I tell my story better?
Right.
So that is still going. And these days, I'm also running something called CritKit, which I think we're going to dive into a little bit.
Yeah, we will get there. But
CritKit is all the best practices of a design critique, otherwise known as Crit, in a box. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So I am excited that that is launching, and I have 50 people on the waiting list to test out the beta kit, which is very exciting.
Yeah, so you're based here in San Francisco.
Yes.
Which is where we're streaming live from. For the folks that are tuning in, we'd love to hear and see where you're tuning in from in the chat. It looks like, I think I see someone from Iran, Portugal. Please jump in. We'd love to say hello. Also, as we go through today's discussion, it's very much a discussion. We are aware you're out there, so feel free to jump into the chat and chime in with any thoughts and comments or questions. We're paying attention. So, awesome.
I should also talk a little bit about...
talk about it.
I was in-house at Twitter. Mm-hmm. I was the first design producer in the product design team. I've been in-house at IBM, recently consulting with Salesforce, Sequoia's venture capital design team. And this fall, I'll be bringing the design operations work that I've been doing for tech companies into academia, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So that's me in a nutshell. The last 25 years in 3 minutes.
That's a lot. That is a lot. Also, 3 minutes. So it was great. Cool. So I mean, I kind of mentioned this at the top of the show, but we're here for World Interaction Design Day.
Yes.
For those of you that are just starting to tune in from Romania and Miami, Ukraine,
Kansas City,
Colombia,
Pennsylvania. Yo, Tim.
Hey, Alex, Katie.
Nigeria, wow.
Oh, we also got Stephanie on there.
Oh, hey,
which
Stephanie.
is great. She's one of our other XD evangelists coming to us from London. We also have someone from Nigeria and India. It's fantastic.
That's exciting.
Which is kind of appropriate, right? It's World Interaction Design Day. We have a very global audience with us today, which is fantastic. So, in a nutshell, World Interaction Design Day is one day a year where the interaction design community comes together to show the impact of interaction design on the human condition. Every year we have a new theme. This year it's trust and responsibility, and that has really shaped the programming for this global, day-long live stream. Day-long no matter where you are. This year's theme, trust and responsibility, let's talk about that. So what does that mean to you? 25 years of experience, lots of different companies you've worked with.
Trust is critical for design, for getting from 0 to 1, for going from where there wasn't an idea or a product to making a product.
Right.
I've worked with a lot of kinds of designers, and I can go from 0 to 1, or I can go from 1 to infinity. But I think let's just talk about trust.
Yeah.
I think the idea behind co-creation, making something where there wasn't something before, requires a lot of psychological trust, a lot of collaborative trust, a lot of do you trust me to come up with the right way to talk about the idea we are co-creating? What do I know about you? Are you the kind of person that likes to go from 0 to 1, or are you also the kind of person, or maybe you're the kind of person who wants to go from 1 to infinity?
Right.
Some people need the parameters determined for them, and other people can take the parameters, nothing and make those parameters. So trust is critical to co-collaboration and co-creation. Responsibility, I feel like these days, a lot of companies are chasing the technology, and I think we all have a responsibility to make sure that we're also paying as much attention to the people we're working with. That goes back to the trust, but are you doing the work that you say? Not you, Lindsay, but are you the designer, are you the creator, doing the things you say you're going to do, and are they done in the time that you want them to be done in? Are they done according to the spec, or is there a reason that you didn't follow the spec or the brief, whatever you want to call it? I love that so many tools are available for designers to be independently responsible for their work, and not just designers. When I say design, I mean creation of any sort, whether it's content strategy or business strategy or execution. You're still in my world. You're still designing.
You're a stakeholder in the design process.
And
maybe an active contributor too.
Absolutely. Right? We're all responsible for one thing. We're all responsible for many things, but I think if you have a clarity on your role, then you are responsible for that slice of the project.
Yeah, and I think, as much as I think the beautiful thing about this year's theme is I think we're all diving in with different perspectives, because of course there's going to be how this actually impacts the design function and actually how we get things done and how we communicate with our stakeholders, but also thinking about what we're working towards and how that impacts our community and the responsibility as designers to create responsibly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
Perfect. So one of the things that we talked about in our initial discussion, because, Josh and I caught up before we decided to jump on here, get to know each other, is around this idea of, design is about exploring possibilities. It's about telling stories and understanding human behavior. And, of course, ultimately collaboratively designing solutions. So when we think about that, you've worked for some big tech companies, as we saw on the logo display you had. You talked about how it's about reframing the problem from the technology to solving things for the user.
Right.
Can you elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, happily. Whether you're a tech worker, a techie, or not, I think a lot of tech companies are chasing tech. They're worried about the next daily active users, or the next feature, or the next something. when I worked at Twitter, it was not unlike using the product Twitter. It was like the pull to refresh was kind of like working there, and that got daunting. It got like, why are we chasing all these things? Why aren't we focusing on collaboration, on working with each other, on making sure that that there was psychological safety and trust to even going to a meeting? I'll tell you a funny story. When I was at Twitter in 2017, we had a design day. Everyone, content strategy, research, design, everyone that was on the product design team was invited to give a talk, and the theme that year was change.
Okay.
So I was thinking a lot about what I could give, what I might bring and offer to the team, and I thought, if everyone's going to talk about change, maybe I could talk about what doesn't change. So we're chasing whatever Apple says with the next device that's being issued. We're chasing the updates to software. We're chasing all the kind of daily active users that will push metrics, and that's great if you've also paid a lot of attention to what doesn't change, which is people, which is making sure that you understand, are you a morning person? Do you prefer kickoffs at Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock? Probably not, but
Well,
are you paying
depends
that?
on the week.
Sure, yeah.
It's
Maybe not
unlikely,
today,
though.
maybe not
No,
after
not
today.
today.
So that's when I started thinking more and more about making sure that we can spend as much time working on the layer of people as we do the layer of tech.
100%. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you feel it's like a challenging concept to communicate, especially like since we are in this culture of chasing deadlines and shipping features and things like that?
Yeah, the shipping mindset, the hustle culture is a lot to recover from,
Right.
but I think it's happening. It is happening. I was just in Helsinki a couple of weeks ago at a wonderful gathering called Joint Futures.
Okay.
Shout out to Joint Futures. It was great to be there because a lot of the panelists, a lot of the speakers were talking about the shift from tech to people, to co-creation. And the whole concept of Joint Futures was actually, now that design has a seat at the table, what's next? How can we co-create beyond just having design leaders at the table, designers as co-founders? So I do see a change happening. I do see that shift beginning to happen. Initially, when I started talking about the people layer and thinking about it, it was a little bit of a challenge to bring people along. But I'm that 0 to 1 person, so I think that I'm always a little bit ahead of what I think can be, ultimately will be evenly distributed.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I guess like as designers, what you're saying too is like now that they have a seat at the table, something that was long fought for, there is this opportunity to tap into these things. So
100%. Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we kind of touched upon this too when we were talking about your experience with CritKit. I'm
yes.
totally struggling this morning. Forgive me.
No, it's all good.
So that has to do with design critique. So
Yeah.
do you want to, for those that are maybe less familiar with design critique, I'm sure most of you are, but just in case,
Yeah.
do you want to talk a little bit about design critique?
Yes.
Should we throw to your screen on? for
Yeah,
some-
let's
some
go to the
background
videotape.
support?
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay. Critique is a conversation about making work better. And CritKit came out of my time working at Twitter, managing the Crit program for the product team. It got to the point where crits were so popular that I couldn't attend 100% of them. So I said to myself, what would I do to equip other people to practice the roles of presenting and facilitating and taking notes and socializing what happens in the conversation?
Can I just pause there and ask,
yeah.
why do you think that the design critiques are so popular? Like, do people just like to give feedback in this culture? or-
Feedback is critical to everyone's work. I mean, there are people giving us feedback right now on,
It's true.
on,
It's
on
true.
the stream.
Awesome.
Everyone needs feedback. I think a lot of people think about feedback as something that they don't want, maybe a gift that you didn't want to receive. But feedback is about making work better.
Right.
And critique is about making a piece of work, an aspect of a work, whether it's screen or a whole flow, better. And I want critique to be more popular than it is because I think that a lot of people are thinking about critique as this is my chance to swoop and poop. This is my chance to like enter the room and like,
Yeah.
put my ego into the conversation. That is not a great critique. So
No.
Crit, the way that I like to approach it, is making sure that there is a level playing field for everyone from C-suite to even the intern to contribute to making the work product better. So.
Well, I think in order to have a successful design critique, you basically have to have both parties going in there with like mutual intent, meaning they both go in there with this idea that they will improve whatever they're working towards.
Which takes trust and responsibility.
It takes trust and responsibility.
So
100%.
this is the beta of CritKit. CritKit.co is set up right now. I'm testing it with a couple of different tech companies. I'm really excited that this concept came out of Twitter. Has been tested at Blend and Salesforce and a couple of other places that I've consulted.
Okay.
And I'm excited to bring it into the world. And what it contains is setting the stage, making sure that we are all clear on the kind of conversation we're going to have.
Yep.
Directing our attention. Pay attention to this, not that. And that's important because if you are thinking about layout but not copy, or thinking about copy but not layout, you want to make sure that you get the feedback you deserve.
Right.
And you get the feedback that you were expecting.
Context is everything.
Context is king, actually. So here's a couple slides from when I ran Crits at Twitter. We see Sean here presenting us 4 options for one kind of layout. He's not. He's agnostic to any kind of option. He's thinking about maybe this would be better than that, and that takes psychological trust to get the other people in the room to have an open conversation.
Right.
Begin questions with how might we? What might we consider if X was a concern and not Y? And that kind of openness and not having an answer, but knowing that you can walk into the room with people who will help you get to the answer is about psychological trust. So that's a base level aspect of a good crit.
Well, and also framing it more as a question or exploratory versus like going in and being really prescriptive, like this needs to change without actually understanding, again, back to context.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's
wonderful.
right. Couple other slides on this. Collaborative trust. Tina here is talking with UN, Dave, Mike, and a couple other people. Some are ICs, individual contributors, some are managers. But there's a level playing field in Crit where it doesn't matter if you are a manager or an IC. Everyone can contribute to the conversation at the same level, and it's critical to have buy-in from everyone.
Right.
So
I also see you have posters on the walls.
Yes.
These are like helpful reminders
Yes.
to those that are participating.
Yes, giving and receiving feedback were the posters that I collaboratively developed with other people inside Twitter and other consultants that were running crits and other tech companies. Those posters are now inside CritKit, but the kit contains conversation prompts, how to ask for feedback, how to provide feedback, and how to integrate feedback, and also role cards, like what is the job of a facilitator versus a note taker versus a presenter.
Got it.
So all of that's inside the kit, but what you're looking at in the background of this image is the beta of those posters, maybe the alpha, actually.
Got it. Cool.
And the last slide, so what we're looking at here is product managers, product marketing managers, data scientists, and other kinds of contributors all having a shared responsibility for one screen. The woman who's holding the phone in the center of the image, they're all looking at her screen. And it was a moment where I was happy to be in the room to capture this, but it was a moment where we saw how much responsibility there is to one screen, to having a conversation about one feature, one aspect of a larger experience. And I was super excited to be in the room and pilot this kind of conversation. I should also add a shout out to my friend Pardis. She used the CritKit principles for data science conversations. So it's not only about aesthetics.
Right.
It can be applied to anything else.
Got it.
It's really about how to have a conversation.
Yeah, to give. I mean, it's critique. It's not feedback, right? So it's a different kind of thing. But to have those hard conversations at times and making sure they're not hard.
Well, we want them to be easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's hard, if it's seen as sparring, if it's seen as like, if the designer is concerned about presenting their work, then something else is afoot. Like a critique is sort of a microcosm of an organization. Like, don't ship your org chart. I'm sure you've heard that. But like, critique is so much about presenting your work, asking for feedback, making sure that the right people in the room to give the feedback when you bring the piece of work to critique, and why it's important to crit early.
Right.
It's kind of like voting, like crit early and often.
Good sound advice. That sounds pretty tweetable to me. So Josh, there's a question from Tim here. It does take a lot of trust to rely on other designers' perspectives and opinions. However, do you incorporate heuristics into your crits or hold separate heuristic analysis sessions? Sorry.
Tim, I'd love to chat with you about that. I haven't thought about that for CritKit, but I'm sure that it would be valuable for critique. My DMs are open. My handle's on the bottom left of the screen.
Cool.
Yeah, love to chat with you about that.
Do you have like a general opinion on heuristics?
I don't. I'd
Okay.
love to learn more about it though.
Yeah. Okay, you guys
Yeah.
should connect.
Please, yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. We only have a few minutes left, believe it or not.
wow.
But I wanted to ask you, so when we think about design critique, how do you think those help create products that serve the greater good and have positive impact on our communities? Like, is that part of the process?
I want it to be. I think that a critique conversation is really about making work better. And if you have a diverse, intersectional conversation, then I think ultimately maybe it might not happen in the room, but ultimately over time, yes, you will contribute products and services that are better for humanity, especially if you start early. If you have a concept and it's super polished and you have a presentation to C-suite, and they haven't seen it along the way, it might not be as successful or as well received as something that they've been a collaborative part of since the inception.
Got it. Okay, so we'll throw to your screen for the last little bit. Let's talk about resources for humans.
I have a ton of resources that I'd be happy to share with you all. These are a few of my favorites. It's not human resources, it's resources for humans. This is one of my favorites from Cassie Robinson. It's called A User Manual for Yourself. I can't imagine a better way of saying, I'm a morning person, I need feedback X and Y way, things I love, things I need to have in order to get work done. Can you imagine what a collaboration would be like if you filled this out for yourself and your team and they knew when you wanted to receive feedback or what are the collaborative conditions you wanted to work in? I think this is a fantastic resource and it's open source.
It would be amazing, but you can understand how that may be challenging, but I do think the value is there 100%.
So a couple more. This is Humane by Design by John Jablonski. A lot of resources here about accessibility, transparency, a lot of principles in product design, and this is also another humane design guide. Shout out to the Center for Humane Technology. This is page 1 of 2 PDF on making sure that you're thinking about principles that are humane design principles.
Got it.
Emotionality, attentionality, making sure that we're not designing things that are spending a lot of time detracting from our attention. And one of my favorite relatively new management tools is Clockwise. Their AI finds a great time to have a meeting when everyone's available, and it makes changes in your schedule based on when you prefer to have kinds of meetings and when other people are available.
Wow.
So if you took the user manual and you knew when you wanted to have a kickoff meeting and you add Clockwise, I can imagine that like everyone could be in flow state all the time. That seems like a great place to collaborate for me.
Almost sounds too good to be true.
I hope it isn't too good to be true.
Cool.
It feels like it could be really easy to make this happen.
Yeah.
There's so many other tools out there, but these are just a few of my faves.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So again, follow Josh on Twitter, and for maybe some of these great resources, we can make sure you share those out so people can follow along. I
would love that. I'll tweet out a link to all the resources. This has been fantastic, and I can't believe our time is already up.
I know, it's wild. It's like it's flown by. But again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Be sure to join the conversation today for World Interaction Design Day with #IXDD. You can see it in the background. We want to hear from you, and thanks for tuning in.